Okay, part three started now. All ready to go. Right, Carl Lentz.
Yeah, hi Dean. This is obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking. Now, the only reason why I mentioned Carl Lentz is obviously I did a recent video, which I'm not too sure if you've seen or not. Well,
Yeah.
actually, you told me you have listened to.
Yeah.
And you mentioned him, which I didn't comment on in part one.
Yeah.
About Carl Lentz. What is your view now? It's slightly unfair advantage on him because obviously he's not here to discuss whatever your position is or my position.
Yeah.
But that's it. Where do you stand? Because I've never implied any position on you personally about Carl Lentz. Where do you stand? What are your views?
Yeah, the way I see, these people that come up, these gurus. Just to give a bit of a background, Carl Lentz is a common law guru that popped up 2 or 3 years ago on quite a well-known show in America called. It's run by a woman called Angela Stark on TalkShoe, and her podcast is called. Let me just get it up on iTunes here. It's called for people My Private Audio. So if everyone goes to My Private Audio, put it straight into Google, it comes up Angela Stark, and she has what's a recording telephone system where people can conference called TalkShoe, and the Americans use TalkShoe quite extensively. There's also another one called Blog Talk Radio, but TalkShoe is extensively the one that all the American gurus go on. And all Angela Stark does is she facilitates. She's been going for years. She facilitates guest speakers coming on, talking about law, etc., etc. So one week you can have someone talking about the Constitution and the amendments of the Constitution that have never been used, and the Federalists are trying to enslave the American people. The next thing your following week, you'll have someone that says about the name and the use of the name. And then a few years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, Carl Lentz started to pop up and call in and add his sort of aspects of what people were saying. And then he started to ring up and speak to a couple of gurus and disagree with the gurus that were on. And the bottom line is with someone like Carl is I've met Carl twice. I met him once in Coventry when he first came over. And I met him when he came over he'd done a talk in Buckinghamshire, just near High Wycombe. And, he's a very nice man. He's a very intelligent man, extremely intelligent. He's I see him very much along the lines of like Robert Menard, John Harris, and those sort of free thinkers on that side of the legal coin. We spoke about the judges on the flip side, the legal free thinkers. The problem is with a lot of the common law stuff, Brad, and I don't know if you agree with this, is in relation to enforcement. The problem is that the powers that be, the men and women that call themselves government, even though the common law is the basis of the law, what's laid on top of it is, one chap in particular that I've got a lot of time for, Guy Taylor. I've spoken to Guy a few times, and he's a smashing guy. And I've met him. I met him once at the Kent.
I like Guy Taylor, to be honest. He's got big gonads.
Oh, he's and I met Guy and his wife, and when I met them, after the talk, we had a beer right on the side of the Thames. We had this lovely porch outside of the pub, and we sat there on a lovely summer's evening. It was myself, Vin James, and Pondy, David Lee. And I said to them, where do you get your energy from, for Christ's sake? Because they come all the way down from Hereford. I think it was well before the Bodmin Manor debacle and all that went on with there. But Guy is a force of nature. He really is. He's a force of nature. He's an incredibly. He's just a good bloke. He is a good bloke. I know he's got. He had a.
He comes across to me as very honest.
He is. But guides, again, as I was saying earlier, I know we're getting off lengths at the moment. We'll get back onto it. Is that what I'm referred to in the previous recording, Brad? Is you've got to learn from people's life experiences. I mean, Guy Taylor faced over a month every day, I think it was, at the Old Bailey every day on an alleged counterfeiting charge at counterfeiting dollars. When you've got someone like that that stared down the barrel of the gun of, 20, 30 years, when you're looking at all this civil handbag stuff, Guy just more off a duck's back, I mean, But, going back to the Lent situation, I met Carl, found him to be extremely intelligent. But the one thing that concerned me, and I don't know if you agree, Brad, is that I think the best person to make the Carl Lentz approach effective is Carl Lentz. And that's the problem with a lot of these gurus, is that, yes, they are effective, or they claim to be effective in what they do. But it's actually picking up from where they've left off and carrying that baton. Yes, they may be effective, but can you be as effective as they are? I don't know. Do you agree with that, or do you think that's way off?
I think that's a hard one to position, because people, or let's just use his phrase, a man is obviously going to be as effective as himself anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know. I mean, all the easiest way I can refer back to it, Dean, is my video that I did. I mean, I missed out some points on there, but to be fair, they were relevant. They had relevance.
Yeah.
But I didn't think it was going to. I didn't want to continue the video much longer to drag it out where people just fall asleep.
Yeah.
And I've got nothing against the guy, to be honest. The only thing that I was trying to impart on people was the fact that this will not work in court.
Exactly.
And what's the guy's video that you sent me, which I actually really enjoyed watching? And a real
character. I've never spoken.
Now, I know.
Yeah, I've never spoken to Jamie, but Jamie Bopalot.
Don't know the guy.
Yeah. Jamie Bopalot Barnes, and Jamie, if you're listening to this, you seem like a cracking fella. You really do. And your YouTubes have really.
I actually really enjoyed it.
Yeah. He really made me laugh. He's not only is Jamie, he's a character, but from what I can glean from Jamie's situation is that, again, listening to Carl Lentz's show, his talk shows. I was listening to the talk show where Barley chipped in and introduced himself, and and then the whole. Barley bringing Carl Lentz over to UK, etc., etc. I was also listening when Jamie Barnes rang in, Jamie Bopalot Barnes, if people want to YouTube him. And he's the Freeman cannabis grower, where basically, again, apologies, Jamie, if I've got this wrong, but what I've gleaned from it is that Jamie effectively has realised that he can't get any gainful employment. So what he decided to do, and which is great, he decided to go into cannabis production and grow his own plants. But what he did was, being an honourable chap, is that he notified the police, he notified the Crown Prosecution Service, and he notified the Crown. Again, apologies if I've got that wrong or who he's notified. But anyway, he sent notices out, Freeman-esque notices, to let them know. But what happened was he started growing.
So he told them all that he's growing cannabis, did he?
Yeah. And,
is that what happened?
Yeah. And they've guess what happened, Brad? They nicked him. For it. And it's quite interesting because when you see one of Jamie's YouTube videos, he's actually got hold of the interview footage of when he was interviewed at the police station, which is quite interesting. And obviously they've got full disclosure. He's not denying, but Jamie's position is, using the Carl Lentz approach, is he wants his property back. And that.
What, he's asking for his cannabis back?
Yeah, it's asking for his property. Yes, because one of the stated aims of government is to secure people. People rightfully hold on to their property that's legally theirs.
Actually, just stop there 1 second, Dean.
Yeah.
This is going back to protection of property.
Yeah.
And people.
Mm-hmm.
People need to realise that the government have no obligation to do anything for you.
Yeah.
Lawfully.
Yeah. And they've got
the amount of case law that I've read.
Yeah.
For example.
Yeah.
So, for example, where people are suing the police, the police have no duty of care whatsoever. There's plenty of case law out there, so people bear that in mind. It's the same for government.
Exactly, Brad, and kudos to Vin Jones of the No State Project. You met Vin online. I'm very friendly with Vin, who's a great guy. He's yourself, your good self, Brad, and Vin.
I actually admire that guy, to be fair.
Yeah.
And I don't know him as well as you. I've probably spent all of maybe half an hour talking to him last year.
Yeah.
He comes across as another top bloke like Guy Taylor.
He is. Vin is one of including yourself, Brad, and a couple of others that we mentioned. One of life's great, really good human beings. Vin has done a lot of work, obviously using the Mark Stevens approach, but Vin has found through his research. Just
because this. One second.
Yeah.
I just want to clarify this.
Yeah.
Just so we get this straight. This is because obviously this is part 3.
Yeah.
The Mark Stevens approach is not something I'd subscribe to.
Mm-hmm.
However, I really, really like the guy and love his ethos. And I've learned a lot from him.
Oh, God, yeah.
So I just want to make that clear.
God, yeah.
You cannot follow that channel in completeness.
No.
And I'm not, as well, I'm not preaching to people about what route they should go down.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, and the way I've learned to work through the UK legal system, and also the US, actually, as I have which is
that's funny.
Yeah, that was funny.
That was funny. Really funny.
Yeah, I prescribe to nobody and wish no one to prescribe to me. Is that you've just got to take elements and nuggets from these people and to most of them actually we're diverting slightly. Sorry, Dean.
Yeah.
But even like Gordon Hall, which I do not like whatsoever. But I even learned stuff from people like him.
Exactly. There's a lot to be learned. What Vin did, and Vin done this a few years ago, is that he researched extensively into their duty to protect. And as you've just said, Brad, there is no duty of any police force in this country to protect you. There's no duty there. Time and time again with cases, if you get attacked, or you're attacked in your house and you call the police, and then you sue the police for damages received, bodily damages received. Well, Brad, you know where that's going to go, don't you? They're going to say, well, sorry, we've got no duty to protect. But of course, the PR, the public PR, the bullshit, pardon using the fruity language, the bullshit, the PR is that they're there to protect you. They are not there to protect you. They're just not, time and time again. But of course, that never gets produced in the mainstream media, because then certain people are going to say, well, hold on a minute, why are we having to pay for police forces when they're not there to protect us? What's this all about? So clearly there's a disconnect there, but it's not part of the PR, which you well know. It's not part of the PR. But going back to the Lentz thing, if people want to research...
Sorry. I interjected. Sorry, I apologise.
Sorry. Going back to the Lentz thing, if people want to research Carl Lentz, The background of Carl Lentz comes from the background of a man called the Nitty Gritty Law School. And the man, oh dear, I've only gone blank. And his name is, he's got a really long white beard. He's American, and his name is, the Nitty Gritty Law School. If people Google it, the Nitty Gritty Law School, and he's a common law guru in America. It seems like an awfully nice man, very studious, a real heavyweight researcher. But again, it's Bill Thornton. Bill Thornton and the Nitty Gritty Law School. When you've got the likes of Thornton and his research and what he teaches...
I was just about to Google it, actually.
Yeah. You know, there is value to it. There is a background to it, but it's not enforceable. You know, Bill Thornton doesn't really litigate as such, from what I can glean. And he's very respectful towards judges when he is in court. You know, so when you peel back the layers of the onion, which is what this is, you can always trace back where these people's backgrounds come from and their approach to their particular process. It's like if me and you go to a football match, Brad, we watch someone take a free kick. Each individual player will take that kick differently. They'll approach it at a different angle. They use a different part of their foot. It's all down to approach. And this is the same thing with these gurus with regards to their approach in law. They have their own angle. They have their own approach. Now, clearly, they've had success. It doesn't necessarily mean if you pick up where they left off that you're going to get success using their approach, because they're the best one to carry their own process. And I think that's where Jamie Barnes come a cropper, because Jamie Barnes, used a process that Carl recommended to him on TalkShoe. Jamie picked it up and ran with it, and I think he
actually recommended.
Yeah, I mean, he ran up.
He actually recommended informing the police he's growing cannabis.
No. What he did was Jamie used the Freeman approach, as in notification, and then he had his
as in notice and stuff like that.
Yeah, notice, but etc. You know, the older, notice, blah blah blah, and and then when he got a knock on the door and got his collar felt, his approach was using Carl's approach, which Jamie has produced numerous. It's Jamie Barnes, everybody. If you want to YouTube it, and you'll see.
I must admit, right?
Yeah.
I don't know the guy. Never spoke to the guy. I hope he doesn't get sent down.
No, of course not, because he seems like a smashing fella. And he seems like, someone who's trying to do things in his own way. The problem is with the Freeman sovereignty movement, Brad, is in the recordings that we're going to put out, I don't think you'll hear us slag anyone off, because everyone's got their own approach. And the problem and the issue here is, for anyone that's listening to this, boys and girls, is we need to work together as a collective, not keep falling out with each other. Because, the British Empire was built on divide and separate. And it's a very old rule book and a very old rule play. And that's what they do. We've got to stop falling out with each other. We've got to try and help each other. And people that are in particular situations, we should support each other and help each other, even if you don't necessarily agree with their approach. We should be there for each other, try and help each other.
Do you know, the thing that kind of frustrates me about Lentz is his analogies and stories.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking and we go off topic, to be fair.
Yeah.
But he will come out with some sparse stuff, and I just think, what the fuck are you on about?
Yeah.
It's a bit like, I went to McDonald's and I did this, and I went there and I moved over there and I did that. What the fuck is that got to do with law?
Yeah, I mean...
people who are exploring information. Bear with me, Dean.
Yeah.
People who are exploring information, they need to stay on point. They need to go down the right avenue. Now, we all know common law exists. It does exist. As many of the paperwork, and I'm not too sure if I've shown you some of the cases. People have been charged in where I've assisted with common law offences. They've later been dropped, but there's it does exist. Now the problem is the interpretation is purely there's no proactive legislation on common law. It's reactive.
Yes.
The reactive being harm, loss, and injury, right, which is fine. Yeah. Which we all know about. But basically, the legislation relies purely on cases which have been heard as common law offences. But there is no, for example, statutes and acts which are pre-written. Yeah. They're not post-written. Yeah. Common law relies purely on court interpretation, where statutes and acts which do have post-interpretations are actually written. Common law isn't.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And the one thing that Mark Stevens says, because I don't know if people are aware that Carl Lentz has run up the Mark Stevens No State Project show that he does on Saturday evenings UK time on the LRN, the Liberty Radio Network, LRN.FM.
Oh, on that point, actually.
Yeah. Go on.
I don't talk to Mark privately. We've had a couple of, I'm talking seconds, if not minutes, conversations. Is Carl Lentz put on his talk show where he says I can't remember the precise wording, but it's like slates or tackles Mark Steven. Yeah. Carl Lentz sounded like a complete fucking prat, if I'm honest.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And this is it. Carl's rung up Mark's show, and Mark's been very respectful to him, and said, look, Carl, obviously, if you're successful in what you do, the one thing I can't get my head around is when you say you bring your court to their court. I don't know what you're talking about. And this is the thing that I can never get my head around.
It's impossible. It's impossible.
Well, exactly, because you're stepping into their arena and you're stepping into their version of the world. It's their version of the world, Brad. As we said, you're walking into this.
You can't counterclaim. You cannot counterclaim on a criminal case.
Exactly.
You cannot.
Exactly. This is where either me or you are missing it completely.
Sorry, Dean, I interrupted you.
No, it's okay. No, we're getting a bit passionate now. Nothing wrong with that. The counterclaim thing. I don't understand the process. I've been to 2 Carl Lentz lectures, meetings, met the man, had a private chat with a guy, met Barley a few times, had a few chats with Barley, nice guy as well. I just can't get my head around it. Maybe I've been educated, dumb, just can't get my head around it. I can see merit to Mark stuff. By the way, if you want to research into Mark stuff, as I mentioned, he's markstevens.net, M-A-R-C, Stevens.net. Again, if you want to see a background of where Mark comes from, there's a man called Lysander Spooner. And he wrote The Constitution and No Authority. And Lysander Spooner done this just before the turn of the century. If you actually Google that, it'll come up on YouTube. Listen,
it's a great book.
Oh, it's just, if you can listen to what Lysander Spooner wrote, and this is a man that tried to set up an independent US Postal Service and came a cropper. He was a lawyer, an American lawyer. You realise that this man absolutely nails he absolutely nails what government is and what the men and women that call themselves government are. For the liars, thieves and killers that they are, because that's what they are. They're liars, they're thieves, and they're killers. And when you look at what Lysander Spooner wrote, and you can get your head around what he's saying, because it's a paradigm-busting, it's basically an essay. It's a paradigm-busting essay. And then you go on to read Mark's book, Adventures in Legal Land, and now his second book that he's just released, Government Indicted. You can probably get them through Vin at the No State Project UK. If you want to learn and get the background, they're paradigm busters. They really, really are paradigm busters. But one thing that Mark shows, and Brad, you can attest.
Another good one to look at. Another one to look at, and I apologise for interjecting again.
Sorry, mate,
I'm still got that delay, but it's Aaron Russo, Freedom to Fascism. It's a great little YouTube video to listen to understand about how the system works.
Yeah, exactly.
Have you? Sorry, Dean. Go and carry on.
Yeah, as we said, Brad, we referred to it in an earlier recording. Underneath all that paperwork, there's a gun. And in UK terms, that's definitely the case in America. But in UK terms, that's exactly the same. Because what they do, they just take you and they put you in a cage. In this country, the same with all countries, we're meant to be free and we're meant to have liberty. But if you say no enough times, and you know how many times that can be, Brad, you'll get put in a cage. Because even as in a civil situation, where there's a civil fine, that then jumps over to criminal eventually. Say you don't pay court fines, that then becomes a criminal infraction. Then you go inside. This is where what you said before, Brad, you need to deal with issues and you need to deal with them early and not let them ride and spiral out of control. Over to you.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So in conclusion, what is your opinion on Carl Lentz? Sorry.
I can't see the merit in the approach, and I haven't seen remedy in the approach either. Now, I could be completely wrong. There could be people out there listening to this recording saying, well, I've done this, I've done that, I've done the other. Let me ask you a question. If you have used the Carl Lentz approach, was it the fact that the court just couldn't be bothered with you anymore and they let you go? Or was it a fact on a true point, an issue of law? That's my question.
Yeah, and the other point, and something I made on that video that I did, is you walk into court and say, I'm a man.
Yeah.
The judge is going to say, okay.
That's nice.
What else can he say?
Exactly.
I appreciate you putting that out.
Yeah, thanks for that.
I think the first thing he's going to think is that you're fucking weirdo. Yeah.
Well, exactly, Brad. And this is,
but
and this is my other cause for alarm. The meeting, especially the second meeting I went to in High Wycombe in Buckinghamshire, when I sat there for best part of the day on a Saturday, I was actually quite alarmed at the amount of damaged people that were there in the room. And when I say damaged, I'm talking people that have been damaged by the system, from the different approaches that they've taken, or people that were, how can I put this politely, had issues, mental issues. And the reason I say that, even I didn't necessarily speak to any of these people, I'm going by the way that they were twitching, the way that they were sitting. I think there were a few people there that were probably...
I mean, many of the cases...
Yeah, sorry.
Many of the cases that I deal with are those sort of characters.
Yeah.
And I remember only maybe 4 weeks ago, I think it may have been, I was in a High Court case hearing. I was running the hearing as a Mackenzie friend. And I got the order that I wanted, or was sought.
Yeah. And
I sat back and, I didn't realise that a bunch of activists come in the back of the courtroom.
Great.
And it was on a Monday, and they were talking about family issues, family law, family government taking their kids and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
I only knew this.